the Seattle Seahawks 27-13. And Seattle was the better team. No doubt about it. Seattle deserved to win. I really was hoping for better. Knew it would be tough, and the Giants are now 6-2, which you can't complain about at all. The Giants head into the bye 6-2. Record-wise, it's just about as good as you could have hoped. But this was a downer going into the bye week, no question about it. And the game was tied going into the fourth quarter. Or no, I guess technically it was 13-10. But it was tied in the fourth quarter. And so the Giants, they definitely had a chance to win this game. You felt like they could, but the offense got nothing going today at all. Like the ground game wasn't there, and the passing game, no surprise, wasn't there. And yeah, Seattle was just simply better. Geno Smith has really resurrected his career. Like he looks like, with Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, he's got some weapons and he's looking pretty good. And two key punt return fumbles by Richie James. To the point where Richie James, as a fan, like you want him cut. Richie James, like you never felt good about Richie James as your punt returner anyway. With the way things are, especially with the Giants are, you're really just hoping for, a fair catch or just, the other team downs it or whatever. Because more bad than good can happen. A fumble, a holding penalty. Now, I know, like, maybe that's not the right mindset to have, but, like, if you're looking at who you have as options, yeah, you're kind of just hoping that, nothing bad happens. And Richie James, his fumbles lead to 10 points. And just kind of devastating moments as well. And after the first one, I'm thinking, like, maybe there's a chance that he, they sit him and he doesn't get that next chance to fuck up again. He does. And you can't kill Dable for that. Look, it was one fumble, but it crossed my mind. And so when he did it again, it was extremely frustrating. And Richie James, earlier in the season has struggled as well. There was a fumble. There might have been a muff at some point. Like he has looked shaky. Richie James, it's just frustrating. So he's part of the story. But it made the Giants' abilities to win even tougher. Like, you take the Richie James stuff out, you're probably still losing this game, but that really put it out of reach. And so, yeah, it was tough. And look, the Giants are dealing with injuries, as are most teams, but the Giants, just talking about them, last week, Bredesen and Neal get hurt on the line, so you saw Azudu and Phillips, and today not as great as it had been, when they came in last game. Amazing story. Nick Gates returns and played a few snaps and looked pretty good doing so. So amazing about Nick Gates. We'll see, how he factors in moving forward, but maybe you can gradually build him up into something. Now, if you remember, when we last saw Nick Gates, he was the starting center. But before that, Nick Gates he's very versatile. Really, he's played all over the offensive line. So I think anything's possible, but at this point it'll be a limited role. But that was a good thing as far as Nick Gates was concerned. But also, no Daniel Bellinger. You felt that. You really did. You really only have one blocking tight end with and Chris Myrick. So, Tanner Hudson and Lawrence Cager are really just more receiving tight end types. And so you lose, Bellinger just for the simple fact of what you have left behind. That injury hurts. So, yeah, a disappointing game for the Giants. You're not going to be up in arms about it. Also, what kind of sucks and the Giants have had a schedule that is easy, but still has the rest of the NFC East. And what I want to say by that is the Giants finished it last year. So what that means is the way it worked out this year is you play the last place NFC South team, the last place NFC West team, and the last place AFC North team. Okay, the South works out fine with the Panthers. However, that whole division's awful, and it was a home game. Then the Ravens, that's arguably, with the Bengals, like that's the toughest team. So you really didn't catch a break there, but the Giants won. But this one they weren't able to overcome. You're at Seattle, which is about as tough as it gets in terms of just, going to Seattle in the first place. And Seattle fans, they are a factor. So it's just unfortunate when you're in that last place slot. And especially after the Russell Wilson trade, you're thinking, all right, like even better. Like Seattle, like that's an advantage. Yet how it worked out was the Cowboys beat the Rams, the Eagles beat the Cardinals, and we'll see what Washington does. And Washington is slowly emerging into this race, and that was kind of an unfortunate situation where Washington beat the Colts. So the NFC East continues to win football games. The Giants, a tough week. On the whole, you're feeling good about things, just as far as what expectations were, and they had the bye, and you're coming out of the bye with games home against the Texans and the Lions, and games that you really do want to win. And then at that point, then Thanksgiving on, the schedule gets very interesting and difficult versus the NFC East. But here, they lose, and Daniel Jones was not great today, among many others that weren't great today. Saquon couldn't get much going. It was a rough day at the office for the offense. I mean, only 14 first downs. Third down efficiency wasn't terrible. Really, their best moments were on third and long. And there was a bunch of them, but their best moments were third and long. But yeah, they just really, only 225 total yards. It was a rough one for the Giants. And you combine that with the Richie James fumbles, and there you go. So in this one, defense kind of was very much king for both teams in the first quarter. Defenses both did a really nice job. Seattle gets the ball first, and they, a couple of plays. DK Metcalf, who was hurt coming in, he got carted off last week, and not that I'm wishing injury, but of course, DK Metcalf, fully healthy, looked pretty much normal and contributed. And Tyler Lockett as well. Tyler Lockett was very much involved, more than even Metcalf was. Good and bad for Lockett. We'll talk about him, but he was also banged up coming in. But the Giants, they give up a first down, but then they force a punt. So good job by the Giants defense. But the Giants would have 3 straight 3-and-outs. So what's ironic about that is that's the first time that the Giants have had 3 straight 3-and-outs to start the game since Geno Smith was the starting quarterback against the Raiders in the game where Eli was benched. It is kind of wild how it comes full circle. And after the game, Geno Smith thanked Ben McAdoo and Jerry Reese for giving him an opportunity. And it all kind of makes sense. And it's amazing. Geno Smith is now, I guess, in about year 10. And he's been, you wouldn't know it, but he's been in the Seahawks now for about 4 seasons. You really wouldn't have thought that. Now, after his year with the Giants, he was backing up Phillip Rivers with the Chargers and I don't think he ever really appeared in a game or never started a game at the very least. At the most, but he waited patiently behind Russell Wilson, did get in last year a bunch when Wilson got hurt, and now he's really taking advantage of the opportunity. But anyway, Giants with a 3-and-out to start. Then the Seahawks are able to get a first down, but then they also have to punt. But then the Giants go 3-and-out as well. The Giants are not moving the ball at all. Jamie Gillen's doing a pretty good job of punting and putting the Seahawks in not the best of field positions. The Seahawks had a decision on 4th and 5 at the Giant 41, late-ish in the first quarter. They decided to punt, which makes sense considering how bad the Giants' offense has been. And there's another 3-and-out. Seahawks started out at their own 31, and they get going on a touchdown drive. 15 plays, 69 yards. It starts in the first quarter and ends in the second, as DK Metcalf makes a key first down conversion, a 15-yard catch on a 3rd and 14. You get a face mask penalty on Jihad Ward, which was not good. And I think that's not the first time that he's done that. So we go into the second quarter, and a couple of 4th down conversions here, which hurts as well. The Giants had done a really nice job, I feel like, this year in sort of those 3rd and shorts, 4th and shorts. But the Seahawks really were up for the challenge. 4th and 1, it's a 4-yard pass to Lockett. Then what hurt on the 3rd and 8 at the Giant 12, Geno Smith scrambles for 6 yards. And that was a good job by Geno Smith. That was a play where, because he did that, it enabled them to go for it, and they convert on 4th and 2. It's a 3-yard reception by Will Dissly. And then a few plays later on a 2nd and goal, DK Metcalf wide open in the back of the end zone for a touchdown, gives the Seahawks a 7-0 lead. The Giants do finally get a first down as Saquon Barkley starts to get more involved. He really hadn't been involved much early, but eventually there's a Tyree Phillips false start, and the Giants aren't able to get that first down. They punt, but it's a good job. Gillen punts at midfield, and it goes to the 2. making things even better is the Giants recover a Tyler Lockett fumble at the 2. So it's a play from Smith to Lockett, and Adoree Jackson is able to recover the fumble. It was close, but Lockett did fumble it, and the Giants take advantage. So the Giants very opportunistic, and on the second play, Saquon punches it in, ties it up at 7. And then the Giants defense gets to work, does a nice job. But here's the killer. The Giants defense is going to get the ball back at like okay field position, like, especially considering where it was and what Richie James could have done with it. But unfortunately, Richie James fumbles the ball. And this is with 2:39 left in the half. So the Giants really had an opportunity to maybe be winning at half. Instead, it's the other way around. And so the Richie James fumble, it's recovered by the Seahawks. And the Giants defense does a nice job there and holding the Seahawks to 3 points. Myers gets a field goal. And I think this was the one where Dexter Lawrence actually deflects it, but it still goes over because it was only 35 yards. So, a little bit of a bummer there. So it's 10-7, and the Giants go really conservative. We've seen that a lot from Brian Daboll this season, where the Giants, at the end of the first half, they're extremely conservative. A little bit frustrating at times when that happens, and they do it here, and not a whole lot goes on. And what didn't make any sense is on the third down, they decide, because once first and second down were conservative, why not at that point just go to half? It ends up being no harm, no foul. They do punt to the Seahawks, but they just take a knee, no biggie. And we go to the second half, and it's 10-7 Seahawks. Then the Giants start the half with a pretty good drive. Right? Was that how the half began? Yes, it was, because, again, and this is where nothing good happens. Gary Brightwell, takes it. I guess he technically didn't take it out of the end zone. But it's one of those things where if you let the ball drop, in almost all cases, it's going to go out of the end zone. But anyway, there's a illegal block above the waist penalty on Breida. So the Giants start at their own 8. But, Barkley gets involved. Barkley, 15-yard run. You get it's really a lot of Saquon. Darius Slayton gets involved. Slayton, 18-yard reception on a 3rd and 12. Slayton, 16-yard catch. And eventually the Giants set themselves up after a Barkley reception for 1st and 10 at the 16. But unfortunately, the Daniel Jones, the bootlegs weren't working. Daniel Jones was not able to run the ball today. That's a big part of the Giants' offense, is Jones' ability where they kind of go after Saquon, but they were able to spy Jones, and the Giants end up settling for a field goal, 31-yard field goal, so we're tied. And this is where, it was definitely an offensive issue today. The defense did a decent enough job, but it just sucks. The responses are there. And we see that across sports. And we've seen the Giants be the beneficiaries of that, where they respond. And the Seahawks do it here slightly. But the Giants did fight back as well. Seahawks, it's a big play from Geno Smith to Travis Homer on a play where Smith kind of almost gets sacked. But, again, I can't say enough good things. Geno Smith has legitimately looked good this season and looked good today. But the Giants are able to, stop it. But it was a good field goal by Myers. 51 yards. It wasn't easy, but he makes a 51-yard field goal. But the Giants, they as well tie it up. Darius Slayton again getting involved. The 21-yard catch for Slayton on a 3rd and 11. So key Slayton receptions. And really, he's been the main target for this Giants offense right now. So we head to the fourth quarter, and it's another first down conversion. Myrick, really nice play where he broke a tackle, gets the first down to the Seahawk 41. You get a Saquon 10-yard run, but then unfortunately, 1st and 10 at the 29, Saquon loses negative 8 yards. And the Giants tried a lot of wildcat today. This wasn't one of those situations where that was the case. But just a bad job by the offensive line, not picking up, I think it was Irvin on the Seahawks. It was. And so that really ruined the drive. They are able to get back into field goal. I mean, they kind of always were in it, but they securely get themselves back in it, and Gano makes a 45 field goal to tie it up. So we're all tied up again. And then the defense. At this point, the defense was doing what it had to, and then now it really fell off. Kind of out of nowhere, but it was pretty bad. We're going to talk about it's 5 plays, 75 yards with pure ease by Seattle. 11-yard catch Metcalf, 6-yard reception for Goodwin, then 12 yards to Lockett, 13 yards to Metcalf, and then it's redemption for Lockett, who had fumbled earlier and then also dropped what should have been a touchdown. It just went off his helmet. Well, Lockett here, 33-yard touchdown catch, gives the Seahawks a 20-13 lead. Then the Giants go 3 and out. So no response there. However, Giants defense is able to get a 3 and out. So you're thinking, all right, the Giants have an opportunity. The Seahawks punt, and it happens again. Richie James with the fumble. It's recovered by the Seahawks. And James would actually leave the game with what they call the concussion. Now, I'm not saying he was faking the injury. He probably legit, but it is, you find it interesting where, like, and I don't want to, like, this is serious. This is very serious, but it's a natural reaction to say, well, after 2 really bad fumbles and he's done. All of a sudden now he's hurt, and he probably legitimately is, but, Richie James, it's tough. That's bad stuff. I think if you're a Giant fan, you really do want him released. We'll see what happens. Look, he's getting cussed right now. Who knows? But coming out of the bye, I just don't really see any need for Richie James. I don't. But we'll see. But that's a huge, at this point, the Giants would have been down by 7 with about 6 minutes left, with 3 timeouts. Who knows what could have happened? Knowing the way the Giants have been all year, maybe. But that kills it immediately. And Seahawks have good field position. It's a 16-yard catch for Noah Fant, and then a 16-yard touchdown run for Kenneth Walker, who had been held in check for the most part. But Walker there, kind of seals the deal. Gives the Seahawks a 27-13 lead. The Giants would have the ball with 5:22 left. They moved it a bit, but eventually they turn it over on downs eventually. It was going to be tough anyway, and then the Seahawks, they do punt, and the Giants, not a lot to speak of at the end of the game, long story short. Seahawks win 27-13. This is the first Giant game that was not a one-possession game. And again, Seattle deserved to win. It's unfortunate, and the NFC East continues to win. The Giants need to keep up. They need to. It's a much-needed bye. And then coming out of it, home against Houston, home against Detroit, before a really, season-defining stretch. You really want to win those 2 games. And look, Houston and Detroit, you could definitely classify them as 2 of the worst teams in the league, but they have been very competitive. I will say that. Both teams. You cannot take either team lightly, but you really want to win both. And if you don't, you're going to be upset about it at this point. So that's the hope now. You take it 1 game at a time, and again, there's a bye week, but for me, the hope is you beat the Texans, you beat the Lions, and you head into Thanksgiving against the Cowboys at 8-2. And then you go from there. So that's the hope. I think it's achievable, but you just never know. And it won't be easy either, just because no game is. But Giants lose it 27-13. They head into the bye week with a very, very good 6-2 record. But there's definitely things for this team to work on.